I am Supreme, and today's Astro Oracle investigation will be on Michael Francke. Michael Francke was the director of the Oregon Department of Corrections, whose high profile unsolved murder remains a subject of intense legal and political scrutiny as of early 2026. Today is March 8th, 2026. This reading on Michael Francke was a suggestion by one of my viewers and subscribers, Sarah Wong. Thank you so much for suggesting this. I appreciate when all of my viewers and subscribers suggest content. And as you see, I do add them to my itinerary. So let's get into this case. This is a very old case, but it's very interesting and intriguing, and I'm going to get down to the bottom of this case today. Now, the murder and initial investigation involving Michael Francke. Now, on January 17th, 1989, Francke was found stabbed to death outside his office at the Department of Corrections headquarters in Salem, Oregon. Corruption theories at the time of his death, Francke was reportedly investigating widespread corruption and drug smuggling within the state's prison system. His family and many supporters believe he was killed to prevent him from blowing the lid off these activities. So, in other words, they believe this was an inside job. So, in 1991, Frank Gable, a local methamphetamine dealer, was convicted of the murder and sentenced to life in prison. So why am I doing the reading if he was convicted? If they found the killer, right? Well, here's why I'm doing the reading. Conviction overturned in 2019. A whole 30 years later. A federal judge ordered Gable's release, citing new evidence of witness recantations and concluding that no reasonable juror would find him guilty today. Gable was officially exonerated after the U.S. Supreme Court declined to hear the state's appeal. I mean, after 30 years, they took 30 years away from this so-called killer's life. And if he wasn't the killer, because let me tell you what they did to make up for it, I guess. A wrongful conviction settlement. In March 2025, which was last year, mind you, this is a 30-something-year-old case. In March of last year, the state of Oregon agreed to pay Frank Gable nearly $2 million in compensation for his wrongful conviction and 3 decades of imprisonment. $2 million is not going to make up for taking 30 years from someone's life and their freedom. $2 million ain't going to do it. Not even 30 million. New FBI investigation request. In April 2025, which was also last year, Oregon legislative leaders from both parties sent a formal letter to FBI Director Kash Patel requesting a new impartial federal investigation into the murder, which is once again considered an unsolved crime after 30 whole years. They once again consider it an unsolved crime. But yet, supposedly, you imprisoned an innocent person because of something that you could not solve and took 30 years of someone's freedom. This is the system now, the American system. Professional impact. Francke is remembered as a professional leader who championed prison reform and rehabilitation. The Correctional Leaders Association, the CLA, continues to honor his memory annually through the Michael Francke Career Achievement Award, recognizing excellence in correctional leadership. Let's pull some cards because I spent time with the charts. In front of me, I have Michael Francke's birth chart. The day he was born, October 2nd, 1946, and I have the day he was found dead on the side of his office building where he worked at, January 17th, 1989. I have where the planets were located on both of those days, the day he was born and the day he died. And I connected some dots, and it formulated a story that made a lot of sense. I'm going to pull from my Astro Oracle. This is going to season, the 6 cards that I pull from this deck is going to season the meat in the charts. I am a high-ranking Astro Oracle psychic. You are about to witness a high-ranking Astro Oracle investigation on Michael Francke. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the bell button so you'll be notified when I drop my Astro Oracle investigations. If you are new to my channel, welcome. I am supreme. I am a high-ranking Astro Oracle psychic. I communicate with the living and the dead. In this reading, I will be communicating with the dead soul of Michael Francke. I will be tuning into his energy signature. Every person, place, or thing that has ever and will ever occur in existence has an energy signature. Whether the person is still alive or dead, it has an energy signature. The energy signature is conjured up through the information involving the person, place, or thing. Of course, when an oracle conjures up the information, we are vessels for these informations. Not everybody's an oracle. The oracle is in the person. It's not in the cards. I am an oracle. I am a high-ranking oracle. I am tuning into the energy signature of the Michael Francke case. And you are about to witness the communication of the dead Michael Francke. And he's going to tell his story. Michael Francke, what happened to you? What happened to Michael Francke, who was born October 2nd, 1946, who was found dead January 17th, 1989? 6 cards tell us your story. In 6 cards, Michael Francke, tell us your story. In 6 cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right. We got jealousy that came out in the house of money. The second house, we have foul play that came out in the 9th house. The 9th house is the house of foreigners. It is the house of long distance travels. It is the house of foreign lands, international affairs, immigration. This is also the house of colleges and universities. This is also the house of churches and religion. Foul play showed up in this energy. It's going to make sense in the charts. Another jealousy showed up in the 11th house. This jealousy comes from a group of individuals, not just one person. This is a group. The 11th house is the house of groups. It is Aquarius's house. It is the house of groups, gangs, organizations, sororities, fraternities, individuals from any walk of life, any religion, any race, all religions, all walks of life, all backgrounds, all nationalities. The 11th house. There is a third house enemy. The third house enemy is the enemy that has information. The third house is Gemini's house. This is the house of information, interaction, local travels, the local environment. This is also the house of siblings. There is an enemy that shows up in the third house of this situation. This is talking about some type of information or somebody that has information. This can also be talking about travel. There is a seventh house enemy. This is a direct op. The seventh house is the house of the direct op. The 12th house is the house of the hidden op. Everything that goes on behind our backs, including enemies that are there. But the 7th house is the direct, raw, uncut, in your face opposition. Now, opposites attract, which is why the 7th house is also the house of marriage. This is Libra's house. There is an enemy that showed up in the 7th house of this investigation. We're going to find out who this is, who or what this is. Lies also showed up in the 7th house of relationships and the direct op. Of course. Let's pull some charts. Michael Francke was born October 2nd, 1946. On that day, the sun was in Libra and the moon was in Sagittarius. When you put a Sagittarius moon in Libra's house, which is the division of time, the sun divided by moon cycles. When you put Sagittarius in Libra's house, Gemini is rising. This is a third house chart. There was a third house pulled. An enemy showed up in the third house. Now, this is Michael Francke's chart. Now, Michael Francke was confirmed to have been an enemy in his workplace. Now, let's look at what's actually going on in the third house. Leo. This is a third house chart, but you can look at these numbers in red as like rooms. Just like the old school religion, in my father's house are many mansions. Yeah, that was an astrological terminology. So, this is the mansion, the third house mansion. These are the rooms, though, in the mansion. In the third room, you see Leo, the third house enemy. Now, this could be a person or a thing. It could be a place. Now, Leo represents drama, especially when it shows up as an enemy. It represents drama. Leo also represents romance. It also represents somebody a lot younger than the victim. Now, let's pull the death chart. The day that Michael Francke was found dead at the side of the building that he worked at. On that day, January 17th, 1989, the sun was in Capricorn and the moon was in Taurus. When you put a Taurus moon in Capricorn's house, which is the 10th house, look what comes first. Leo, the third house enemy that came from the third house. which is Michael Francke's birth chart energy. This particular enemy was in Michael Francke's energy. Now, this enemy came first the day Michael Francke was found dead. This is most likely the person responsible for it. Leo. The person could be a Leo, but Leo could also represent drama. This could also represent someone from the entertainment industry. There was definitely some drama involved that caused this death. This was not a peaceful death. There was drama involved. Leo rules the sun. Where was the sun at that day? The sun was in Capricorn, the authority figure. Capricorn is the authority figure energy. Where is the authority figure energy at that day? The sixth house, Capricorn, right here in the sixth house. The sixth house is Virgo's house. That's the house of employment, which is where we know Michael Francke had a lot of enemies in his place of work. The sixth house is a place of work. Capricorn in the sixth house represents the authority figure in the place of work. Who is this? Could this be the boss? Or could this be Michael Francke? Now, foul play. First of all, jealousy came out in the house of money. Now, the second house is Taurus's house. But let's look at first what's in Michael Francke's second house. Look what you see. Cancer. Cancer energy represents home, family, and the mother. Okay? Now, where does it end? Look in the second house the day Michael Francke was found dead, and this will make sense on why Cancer showed up in here first. Look what's in the second house the day he was found dead. Virgo. And remember, that's where the enemy showed up at, Capricorn. The authority figure showed up in the sixth house of work and employment. That's Virgo's house. Everything in red represents whose house it is. Everything in black represents who's there. Virgo's house is the sixth house of work, employment, and health. Capricorn, the authority figure, is there. Now, the second house where this jealousy came up at is in Cancer. Cancer rules the fourth house of home and family. This will let us know what kind of family it is. Look in Cancer's house, which is the fourth house. Look what you see in Cancer's house. You see Virgo. Looks familiar? That's the same Virgo energy that shows up in the second house the day it actually happened. This is his work family. Are you following me? This is Michael Francke's work family. Jealousy, money, an inside job. Now, foul play in the ninth house. What's in Michael Francke's ninth house? Aquarius. Aquarius is the energy of the group. It rules the 11th house. So there was a group that was against him. Foul play. At one point, they made Michael Francke believe that they were allies to get you right where they want you. That's when the foul play shows its ugly head. This particular foul play came from a group of foreigners because the ninth house is the house of foreigners. And Aquarius represents the group. What group? Look what's in the 11th house. You will see Aries. Aries rules Mars. That day, Mars was in Aries that day. Now, look at where Aquarius is, because we're going to get to what Aries means in the 11th house, because this was the head honcho of the group. But this was one individual from a group that actually is responsible for the foul play. That's what Aries in the group means. Because Aries represents the single one, the self. It rules the first house and it rules the self. When Aries shows up in the house of groups, this represents one person from the group of foreigners that's responsible for the foul play. Now let's look at where Aquarius landed the day Michael Francke was found dead. Aquarius landed in the seventh house, and two seventh house cards came out: the enemy and lies. Lies always represent foul play. So now we know this is the enemy, the person from the group, the single individual from this group of foreigners is the enemy that was in a direct relationship with Michael Francke prior to his death. This was a legal relationship, not necessarily a sexual or romantic relationship. Could have been, but it would eventually lead to foul play. But this was definitely a partnership that masked itself as an ally. But it turns out when the mask came off, this was a wolf in sheep's clothing trying to get close to Michael Francke, like a snake that sizes you up before it zooms in on its attack. The enemy and lies. Relationship and partnership was full of lies. Uranus is the planet that rules Aquarius. Where was Uranus at the day Michael Francke was found dead? Uranus was in Capricorn. You cannot make that up. It was in the authority figure, Capricorn. Capricorn is right here at the workplace. Somebody in that workplace that was also working. There's more than two people here now. But this could also be the same person that was involved in this group. Now, Capricorn, look where Capricorn is in Michael Francke's energy. It's in the house of death, the eighth house of death. Capricorn, the authority figure that came from the workplace. The sixth house. What's going on in the sixth house in Michael Francke's chart? Scorpio. You know why Scorpio was important? Because that is where Mars was in Michael Francke's energy. And this is Michael Francke's energy right here. Mars came from Aries. Mars rules Aries. But it just so happened that Mars was in Aries the day Michael was found dead. The day he was killed, because he did not commit suicide. Michael Francke was killed. The day he was killed, Mars was in Aries, the direct assassin who was a part of this foreign group. And who did this direct assassin kill? And where was this direct assassin at? Look at where Mars was in the victim's chart. It's in Scorpio, the sixth house, the same house that the authority figure Capricorn is in. The person who did this was affiliated with the co-workers. And I'm going to tell you why I said it like that. Because when you look inside of Capricorn's house and Michael Francke's energy, you will see Pisces, the hidden. Pisces in the negative represents drugs and alcohol, intoxication. This intoxicating drug alcoholic energy is in the house, not where it landed, it started in the 10th house of the public, the government. This was about drug trafficking. This individual that killed Michael Francke was involved in the drug trafficking because this is Capricorn's house. You see, Capricorn's house is where the drug trafficking was at. Where was this drug trafficking energy at the day Michael Francke was killed? Look where it's at. It's right here in the 8th house of death. Death. Michael Francke's energy of death is the authority figure in the workplace. What type of authority figure? The one in charge of the drug trafficking. The one in charge of whatever is in Capricorn's house. Pisces. That is the energy that killed Michael Francke. That's the one who holds the energy that killed Michael Francke. And look, this foul play in the 9th house, look what's in the 9th house. Aries, the assassin. He was assassinated by that individual from the group. Right here. Right there. Right there. The jealousy came from that individual. That's who killed him. Look what's in the 11th house the day he died. Gemini. Why is Gemini important? Well, Uranus, which is the planet that rules Aquarius, the group, was in Michael Francke's Gemini energy. Michael Francke's Gemini comes first. He wasn't a Gemini, though. He was a Libra. And where is Libra at? Libra is Michael Francke's sun sign. He was a Libra. Look at Michael Francke right there in the 5th house. Why is that so important? Because look at the chart that was rising the day he died. The 5th house chart. And guess who comes first? Leo energy, because Leo is the 5th sign of the zodiac. Do you see how these dots connect? Energy does not lie. It tells the whole story. The whole story. The sun rules Leo. The sun that day was in Capricorn, right here in the house of employment, the authority figure in the house of employment. Saturn is the planet that rules Capricorn. Where was Saturn at in Michael Francke's energy? Saturn was in Leo. You cannot make this up. And Michael Francke's energy is right here. But the Leo came first. But Michael Francke's Leo is in the 3rd house. The enemy. This enemy and this enemy. This is Michael Francke. This is the enemy that killed him. They were enemies. There's more than one person. There's more than one person. There's more than one person that's responsible for the death of Michael Francke. There is more than one person. I'm not going to say it's the whole group, but it's more than one person. More than one person. I'm going to pull 3 cards from my messages to elaborate on the Michael Francke case. 3 cards. Tell us about the Michael Francke case. Help us close this case out. Is the guy that they put him in jail for 30 years. Is that him? In 3 cards. Tell us what happened in the Michael Francke case. 3 cards. 3 cards. 3 cards on Michael Francke. 3 cards on what happened to Michael Francke. 3 cards on what happened to Michael Francke. 3 cards on what happened to Michael Francke. Y'all ready? The first one. Employment. Of course, somebody from his job. The 6th house. Employment. Y'all ready for the next one? Abuse of authority. Look at that. That's Capricorn energy. You cannot make this up. These 2 cards alone. Hold up. Hold up. This card flipped over. This was on top. When I pulled the deck, it flipped over. This was the card I was going to pull. Look at that. Betrayal. So these are the 3 cards right here. This foul play, betrayal, all of that. The same thing. Look at this. Authority and employment. That's this alignment right here the day it happened. Capricorn is the abuse of authority, and employment is the 6th house. This was an inside job because the foul play and the jealousy, which led to the betrayal, of course, was in the 2nd house. Virgo is the energy of employment. It rules the 6th house. Virgo's house, where Capricorn is at. The authority figure. What type of abuse was this? It was about money. Look in Capricorn's house. What type of money? Look in the victim's house, 10th house. Drug money. Drug trafficking. Drug money. You cannot make that up. You cannot make this up. You cannot. Abuse of authority, employment, and betrayal. Them folks at his job know exactly what happened, and they're keeping their mouth shut. They all know what happened. It was an inside job. That's my reading on Michael Francke, and I'm sticking to it. Y'all tell me what y'all think in the comments below. Y'all be blessed.